Call the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of April 22nd, 2025 to order. Would you please join the board in me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Clerk Scarpiniti, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Manzo.
Present.
Trustee Martin.
Here.
Trustee Nagel.
Here.
Trustee Reddy.
Yeah.
Trustee Tsinga.
Present.
There is a quorum. President Herman.
Here.
Trustee Jane. He's here? Is he on Zoom? Okay. Trustee Jane? Trustee Jane, can you hear me?
Okay, we'll move on.
Oh, he's physically in there? No, he's on Zoom. Okay. All right.
So, all right, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:01 PM. For some updates, I'd like to first provide an update on the bath and tennis discussion from our last board meeting. And I'd like to remind you all that the board voted at the last meeting to refer this matter to the Sports Court Advisory Committee for a discussion of whether the community would like to see the facilities continue once they get to the point where significant capital is needed to sustain the infrastructure, and if so, how to pay for it. That committee will be meeting next on April 29th at 6 PM here at Village Hall. Everyone is welcome to attend. If you're unable to attend and have comments you wish to share, you may do so by emailing them to sportscore@oak-brook.org. That's sportscore, all one word, @oak-brook.org. And we'll ensure your comments are entered into the record for consideration. I'd also like to set the record straight on some questions of transparency that were raised at the last meeting. As I mentioned at our last meeting, village management and I are constantly involved in vetting village opportunities, some that never pass muster and some that ripen to warrant village board deliberation. When a possible project does get to that point, it is typically put on the village board meeting agenda for consideration. That's exactly how transparent and effective village government is supposed to work. So here's how the bath and tennis facility proposal got to be on the agenda for the last meeting. 2 years ago, our voters spoke clearly in a village-wide referendum that the village should not fund nearly $3 million and counting of deferred maintenance at the Bath and Tennis Club building. Following that vote, the village went out for an RFP, request for proposal, for a private banquet operator, selecting Chic Chef as the highest bidder. That single change has moved the banquet operations from a net financial loser to an operating profit. Knowing that we will still need to fund millions in capital repairs, Chic Chef approached us last fall with a proposal where they would invest millions of dollars to completely rebuild the facilities, including new pool locker rooms, new poolside cafe, pool and tennis offices and bathrooms, and a new expanded banquet space. Not wanting to waste anyone's time, we had them float their initial idea by every one of our board members last September in a manner that would not violate the Open Meetings Act. The feedback from the individual board members was that the proposal was very intriguing, but the proposed scale of the rebuilt banquet facility project was too large, and the village would not agree to participate in the funding of the project. Taking that advice, Chic Chef worked with village management for the last 6+ months to scale down their plans and negotiate the financial terms so that all $8 million plus of the reconstruction project would be paid by Chic Chef, along with enhanced rental terms for the village. And it was that revised plan that was presented at our last board meeting. Each of our board members was regularly apprised of the ongoing work between Chic Chef and village management since last fall through a routine weekly written bulletin. And specifically, each Friday, all village employees and each of the trustees receive a weekly update report that provides a high-level review of the activity of each department for the week. That comprehensive disclosure allows trustees to follow up with the village manager on any reported item that piques their interest, as some trustees and I frequently do. From September of last year, when those initial meetings were had, initial presentation, until April of this year, references were made in no fewer than 14 of those weekly reports about ongoing discussions between the village and Chic Chef on the revised plans. There is no basis for any trustee to claim they've been in the dark about this proposal. Everyone on this board knew that staff was working on this, just as we instructed management when we rejected Chic Chef's initial plans last fall. Moreover, no trustee has ever been told that they can't attend a committee meeting, including a Sports Core Advisory Committee meeting. We do instruct our trustees that no more than 2 trustees may actively participate in such meetings to stay compliant with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, but all are welcome to come and observe and speak during public comments portion of the meeting. And with that, I want to move on to another topic, and I would like to remember and honor the remarkable life of Helen DeWitt, who passed away at the age of 104. I believe just a few years ago we recognized her on her 100th birthday. A true pillar of our community, Helen played a vital role in shaping the village of Oak Brook as we know it. From her early efforts with the Oak Brook Civic Association in the 1940s to helping establish the volunteer fire department to becoming our first village secretary in 1958 and the first public relations director for Oak Brook Center, her impact on this village will always be remembered. Lastly, Friday is Arbor Day, a national holiday observed each year to encourage people to plant and care for trees. The day serves as a reminder of the important role that trees play in our environment, helping to clean the air, conserve water, support wildlife, and improve the overall quality of life. It's also a time to raise awareness about the need to protect and preserve forests and urban green spaces for future generations. The Public Works Department will be planting and dedicating a tree at the golf club in observance of Arbor Day. And in a very timely piece of news, just yesterday, the village was notified by the Urban and Community Forestry Program that Oak Brook is now officially recognized as a new Tree City USA community for the first time in our history, making this Arbor Day all the more symbolic. And now I'd like to move on to a presentation of the Shared Use Path Master Plan. And Director O'Malley, would you please introduce the presenters?
Sure. Thank you, President Herman. This is, over the past year, village staff has been working with Civil Tech Engineering to create a shared use path and master plan to be in compliance with Title II of the ADA, American with Disabilities Act. And this act ensures that the state and local governments provide equal opportunities for people with disabilities to participate in village programs, services, and activities. This master plan is intended to provide staff with a robust understanding of the needs of the current shared use path and bike route and how it is to be appropriately planned for the future. I would like to welcome Alyssa Sweeney and Josie Willman from Civil Tech Engineering to present the shared use path and bike route master plan.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having us here this evening. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about our effort over the last year, working hand in hand with the village to develop the shared use path and bike route master plan. So again, I'm Alyssa Sweeney. I'm with Civil Tech Engineering. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning Services. And so we are brought on board by the village. And again, we've been working over the last year to develop this shared use path and bike route network throughout the village. So just to kind of touch on a few slides here and kind of the development of this plan, we worked with village staff to develop specific goals that the shared use path and bike route master plan seeks to achieve. And these are really the guiding principles that were used to develop the path and bike network, which includes improving safety for people walking, biking, and rolling of all ages and abilities, creating a network that enhances resident access to key community destinations, identifying locations along the current bike path network that do not meet industry engineering design standards, and then really developing those standards for all of Oak Brook's pedestrian and bicycle facilities. Also providing a resource to help plan and prioritize capital improvement projects and incorporate community priorities and input. So the development of the plan kicked off in March of 2024. And as part of that, we had a visioning exercise. We started reviewing existing conditions, the existing network within the village. We also held a bike tour with village staff to really get that firsthand perspective of existing facilities. We also had a public survey that was developed and then distributed in May and June of 2024. It included both a questionnaire as well as an interactive input map. We distribute that throughout the village, and we also supplemented that by holding a few pop-up meetings where we went to different community events during the summer to promote the plan and receive direct feedback from community members. Then recommendations to the pedestrian and bicycle network and design concepts were developed throughout last summer and fall. The network and concepts were finalized at late last year, and then we had a community open house in November to showcase the draft plan and gather public input. We then refined some of the concepts and developed the final version of this master plan in early 2025. And one of the goals of the plan was to standardize these bicycle facilities. So the master bike plan recommends 3 types of facilities throughout Oak Brook. And we developed engineering design standards as well for each of these so that there are consistent facilities throughout the village. These fall into shared use paths, bike lanes, or shared lanes. The shared use paths are side paths and trails that are separate from motorized traffic, provide a low stress experience for all users. They're 8 to 10 feet. They allow for simultaneous use for walking, biking, and rolling. And within that category, side paths are typically alongside roadways, whereas new trails are within parks or neighborhoods. We also have conventional bike lanes, which provide a dedicated lane for bicyclists that's separate from vehicular travel lanes. The minimum width is 5 feet, and they're suitable for streets with moderate traffic where there is enough space for a dedicated lane for bicyclists. And then we have the marked shared lanes, and this is a design that involves bicyclists riding on street in a shared lane with vehicles. They're marked with Share symbols that reinforce the legitimacy of bicycle travel and also indicate to drivers that there's a need to be cautious and share the road with bicyclists. So these ones are recommended on more of the low volume, low speed residential streets that are safer for that mixed mode of travel. And this map shows the recommended shared use path and bike route network. There are new facilities as well as upgrades to existing facilities to increase safety and improve connectivity. And this was really developed using the project goals, village guidance, community input, and data analysis, such as looking at crash locations. So on here, you will see that in red, we have the new shared use path recommendations. Then we have in purple the updated shared use paths. So this is just recommending in the future these be reconstructed or refigured to meet current engineering standards. We have new shared use path trails in the green, and then bike lanes in blue and marked shared lanes in yellow. So we have new shared use paths really along Spring, 31st, York, 22nd, and 16th Street. And then we also recommend the marked shared lanes on kind of the existing on-street bike network to alert drivers of bicyclists. So marking those as applicable throughout the village. And crashes involving bicyclists and pedestrians tend to cluster around intersections. And so we have recommended a handful of safety improvements at intersections throughout the village, focusing on, high volume, high traffic roadways such as 22nd Street, Jory, and 31st. So within the plan, we have a handful of these intersections as well as their improvements included. This is an example that's shown at Forest Gate and Jory. A number of these treatments include median refuge islands, pedestrian and bicycle crossings, and curb bump outs. And then one of the goals of this plan is also to provide a resource to help plan and prioritize future capital improvement projects. So we recognize that implementation of these is an extensive process that will involve many years to complete. So as part of this plan, we developed a prioritization criteria with the village and community input and essentially scored each segment on the network. A segment received a higher score if it included a connection to a park or community-oriented space, it was near a school, it filled a network gap, it was identified as a future bike route by a previous village or regional plan, it was identified as a community priority route during community engagement, it addressed safety issues in an area where there were crashes involving people walking or biking, or it was more of a low-hanging fruit, so a project that would have a relatively low cost or be easy to implement. And so the higher priority segments include new side paths along Spring Road, as well as stretches of York, 31st and 16th, as well as intersections along 16th and 31st. So within the master plan, we also recommend phasing of these segments, as well as providing cost estimates for each of these segments as well. So that is a high-level summary of the process to develop the plan, as well as some of the recommendations that are included in the plan. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and I open it up for any questions.
I'll open it up with questions, and I'm going to ask the question that I expect Trustee Tazinga would have asked had I not. I noticed on the plan a high priority to extend or to add a shared bike path, multi-use path along 16th Street and down Spring Road to connect to Timber Edge Drive. That is something I know that has been long desired by the residents of the Oprah Club, as well as access into the mall. And I see you've got a little stub going into the mall there, so those are, I'm very pleased to see that. What's the practicality? I know, and Ed, you may know about this, but are there, when you get down to Spring Road going into Timber Edge Drive, you get into Oprah Terrace? And I know there's, I don't know if there's, is it physically possible? What are the easement issues there? Have we looked at that?
Within Oak Brook Terrace itself or within Oak Brook?
I don't know exactly where the border is, but I imagine that you, the first block or so is Oak Brook, and then I think you're in Oak Brook Terrace, so
Yeah.
how's that going to work?
Yeah, so within Oak Brook and the village itself, there does seem to be space. It does seem feasible to make that connection and to have a bike facility along Spring and along 16th. I think that there would need to be coordination then with Oak Brook Terrace for that portion. We have not specifically worked with them to discuss moving forward that segment specifically. But yes, exactly. There seems to be a desire from the community to have that connection.
And there is width there, there's land there, that would be on the left side or the west side of the street that you're talking about?
Yes, there is. I would say that included in our cost estimates, we do take into account if we anticipate there to be utility issues or right-of-way. So that is accounted for. I would say that there are some barriers in that space.
Anything that's on your mind. I'm ready to go.
But yes, it does seem like it's feasible there.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Trustee Tazinga.
Yes, that was part of my first question, but some of the leadership people at the Oak Brook Club, which has 500 residents, 350 units, and is probably the most well-articulated homeowners association in Oak Brook. It's like a mini government. Some of the people there were doing PowerPoint presentations and mapping out what could be a trail. And one of the alternatives they identified was the other side of Spring Road, which would be the east side, which would cut through DuPage County Forest Preserve land. And we thought it might be that the Forest Preserve might be a better partner than Oak Brook Terrace. It's conceivable. And you have to cross Spring Road anyway at some point to get over onto the rest of the system. So there was an alternative idea about maybe just crossing over Spring Road right at 16th Street and going right onto Forest Preserve land, and then jogging inside that fence line and going along the creek. And that, I know you'd run into Joe Cantori's apartments, and you have to kind of go around them somehow. But did you take a look at that, whether that was a practical option?
That's a great question. We did not look into that in detail. With that being said, we have coordinated with the Forest Preserve on other projects, and they have been amenable depending on what that project is and what they have, what their plan is for the area. So I think that's definitely a possibility. We did not look into detail in terms of like the Forest Preserve right-of-way or what that would look like. But I think that's an interesting idea and something that could definitely be explored in the next stage of the like engineering and design.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
We had a resident speak last meeting, particularly about the issues along 35th south of Trinity Lakes. And I noticed in here, it's just bike lanes. Is there not enough space? I mean, it seems like there's enough space on either side of the road to turn them into an off-the-road path, especially as it goes up and around near 83.
Sure. Let's see.
It's where it's blue. Kind of up and going around Maze Lake.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. We did look into that. There were right-of-way issues there that from an initial, I'd say from a higher level planning look at this, seemed like they would be somewhat prohibitive, so that is why we left it as is. But I would say that with all of this, that if there's interest in moving facilities off-road, that's always better than not. And I would encourage having, I guess further discussions or moving forward further in the engineering design. But from our initial pass, there were, I think, some right-of-way concerns, and that's why it was left as bike lanes.
Particularly if there's actually safety issues along that area that we can identify, then perhaps looking at that a bit more might be worthwhile.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
I have another question. The segment of new path you're illustrating through Long Spring Road through Fullersburg, adjacent to the Forest Preserve and north of that, which side of the street is that intended to run on? And part of that stretch there's a trail already in the Forest Preserve?
And sorry, which segment? Oh, do you say Spring Road?
Yes, if the lower right quadrant, you see along Spring Road there, which is, that's partially adjacent to Fullersburg Woods.
Sure,
Are
yeah.
you showing that in the left or the right side there?
That's a good question. I think this was on the north,
I
the
think
east.
in the northern half, it might have been on the south end, and you'd have to cross at some point to that existing path that's already built out. That being said, again, this is just an initial pass at it, so if you study it further in different phases and it's found that the north side could fit, there's no reason not to. It's just, I think initially when we were looking at it, there was more space on
I
the
mean,
bottom.
it is, if I'm not mistaken, there's a path kind of along Hunter Trails, and then it stops, and then it picks up again in the Fullersburg path.
Only down to like Madison or
Right, but there's a whole segment where you're on the main road, a two-lane road, and it's kind of curvy and hilly and dangerous there. So
Yeah,
I hope we can explore what the practicalities are of making that continuous path.
sure.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Village Manager Summers, what's the next steps with this?
So following basically the board's input tonight, we'll take one last pass through the plan. It will come back likely in the form of the consent agenda for official adoption by the village. That'll put the village in a position where having the plan will not only get us conformance with some of the regulations, but put us in a possibility of grant funding. A lot of those grants require official adoption of a plan.
So this is basically a wish list or prioritization, but ultimately we have to come up with funding to make this happen.
And it'll take place in really two separate ways, one of which will be as roadway projects are conducted adjoining to it, we'll look at this plan and implement those pieces along with the roadway projects because it's more cost-effective to do so while you're there doing that. The second format will be in grants that will help us fill in the pieces between existing connections or on more regional trails where we'll have support. For example, if we're able to implement the path along the Oak Brook Terrace segment, having more than one jurisdiction involved will generally be looked upon more favorably by the grant agencies.
Very good, thank you. Do we have public comments?
Yes,
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the public comment section, whether your comment is on an agenda or non-agenda item. All speakers will be called at this time. Speakers are limited to a period of no more than 3 minutes. Persons addressing the board may comment on issues of public interest relating to the operations of the village. All comments are welcome, but we ask for civility and will not tolerate personal attacks on members of this board or village staff. There were sign-in sheets, and who's our first speaker?
Yes, Ann Huber.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Today is Earth Day 2025, and just by way of some background, this whole movement began in 1962 when Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, which documented the environmental harm caused by indiscriminate use of DDT, which is a pesticide widely used in World War II. And then in 1969, an oil platform 6 miles off the coast of Santa Barbara blew out, spilling more than 3 million gallons of oil and killed more than 10,000 seabirds, dolphins, seals, and sea lions. And then, of course, in 1970, U.S. Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin proposed a nationwide Environmental Education Day, later known as Earth Day, which is today. By 1990, over 200 million people celebrated Earth Day, and in 2025, the entire month of April celebrates Earth Month. We plant trees, we educate ourselves on environmental issues, etc. Okay, well, so in our little village, what are we doing? Okay, this village is now considering pouring asphalt over more village dirt. The latest proposal would be to add parking spots at the OBBT. This is a bad idea for at least 2 reasons, probably more, but the first is the environmental damage caused by parking spots, asphalt. Each asphalt spot increases greenhouse gas emissions, runoff, and what's known as the urban heat island. One parking spot creates approximately 176,560 grams of CO2. That's called the carbon footprint. If you want to research this more, I encourage you to look at the Scientific American article of January 22nd, 2024. The other reason this is a bad idea is because it's completely premature. My friends, please, we do not need any more parking spaces at the OBBT. As President Herman noted at the last meeting, the entire issue of what are we going to do with Sports Corps was punted to the Sports Corps Committee. And so now, this little committee is charged with determining the state of the current facilities, the potential cost of repair, to understand the costs of upkeep and maintenance, to understand the parameters of the existing lease, which expires in 3 years, and listen to all community members, and there are a lot of us, regarding possible uses of the sports court, and we often, conflict and disagree with each other. So it's going to be a messy task of democracy. Overriding all of this process for the OBBT committee would be the deed, and I would encourage you to remember the litigation that Connie Zenos championed against the library, which is in fact a public library, whereas this is proposed as a private catering proposal.
Yeah, Ann, you kind of,
So basically, I would encourage you to please not approve any additional parking spots. I understand that engineering fees are on the agenda for today. Those are sunk costs. They're going to be there. Please don't compound the problem and create additional parking spots with asphalt. Thank you for your time.
thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
That's it.
Okay, to the minutes. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular executive meeting of February 25th, 2025?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Motion carries. Would you now please direct your attention to the screen where the consent agenda is displayed? Does any board member wish to have any item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and authorize expenditures as presented or amended?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk Scarpiniti, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Nagel.
Yes.
Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Tosinga.
Yes.
Trustee Jane, are you on Zoom?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Jane, you were not, we couldn't hear you before when we called the original roll. Would you please state your reason for being on Zoom tonight?
For medical care of for my mother.
Thank you. All right, the motion carries. Moving on to active business, Resolution R-2296, a resolution approving the final plat of consolidation for the property commonly known as 328 Walnut Lane, Oak Brook, Illinois. May I have a motion for the approval of Resolution 2296?
So, second?
Director Von Drossek, can you please present this?
Good evening. This is a application to consolidate two lots. The lots, though, are a little different than some of the previous ones. This is a very old lot, and what had taken place is that the property owner had come to the village with the intent of removing an easement, but it turned out it wasn't just an easement line, it was also a parcel. And so what we've suggested to them is to go ahead and consolidate. We are aware, though, that these types of parcel lines are throughout, and it goes back to sometimes your deed sometimes describes your parcel or your property, but there are multiple parcels within it. And so we've just asked this resident to go through this process. This will be the completion of it, and we have provided it all in one step, hopefully for your approval.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Okay, seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Nagel.
Yes.
Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Tosinga.
Yes.
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Jane. Trustee Jane?
Okay, we probably got some latency there, but the motion carries anyway. Resolution R-2297, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a renewal agreement by and between the Village of Oak Brook and the York Center Fire Protection District. May I have a motion for the approval of Resolution R-2297?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Chief Leahy, would you please present this?
Thank you, President Herman. Good evening. In 2022, the Village Board approved a unique agreement between the Village of Oak Brook, the Fire Department, the York Center Fire District to share fire inspection services. It was unique at that time and still remains unique today, although some towns are starting to look into things like this for other types of services. At that time, we went from a strictly part-time fire prevention bureau to a 5-day-a-week presence where we can, with ease, schedule fire inspections, permit-based inspections, and serve the community better, as well as communicate or coordinate better with the building department, development services to go along with their inspections. We've seen a significant productivity increase. We conducted over 1,700 inspections in 2024 as compared to just over 200 inspections back in 2020. And all this is while maintaining, for the most part, our budgeted funds, which the only increases have been 3 to 4% increases for salary adjustments over the course of the years. So the request tonight is to renew this agreement for an additional 3 years.
Thank you. Which is currently budgeted, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
Could you just help me understand? I mean, the increase is astounding. Is that just additional building, additional development? Where does the massive increase in inspections
So
come from?
all of those inspections are strictly life safety-based inspections. Those are outside of permit-based. And that increase is a direct result of having a presence here 5 days a week. We had very inconsistent staffing levels with our previous part-time arrangement, and now having somebody here daily or multiple people here daily, depending on a part-time presence or not, allows us to complete a lot more inspections.
So they just weren't getting done before?
Correct.
I'll give you an example. I mean, I own a commercial property in town, a couple, and there was a period of time going way back where once a year I could count on the fire department, the fire inspector coming, check the fire extinguishers, check to make sure that the alarm panel was up to speed and tested and sprinklers and all that. That dropped off, and we probably didn't see anyone for at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. And since we started this arrangement, they're back in like clockwork.
Oh, fantastic.
Other discussion? Okay. Clerk Scarpiniti, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Nagel.
Yes.
Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Tosinga.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Jane.
Motion carries. Resolution R-2298, a resolution approving the waiver of competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of a monitor defibrillator. May I have a motion for the approval of Resolution R-2298?
So moved.
Second?
Chief Fleege, back to you.
Yes, thank you. This item is to replace a 2018 model year cardiac monitor that's reached the end of its useful life. The fire department currently operates 5 cardiac monitors, allowing us to provide advanced life support services across all of our vehicles, no matter what's on the street at the given time. 3 years ago, we did a deep dive into our cardiac monitor replacement system, and we found that our replacement cycle needed some updating. We were replacing it every 5 years at that time. Now we have moved to 7 years. And over the course of the last 3 years on the 7-year replacement plan, we've experienced no issues. During those 7 years, that's what the manufacturer will support parts and labor on repairing any devices. And again, so far that has worked out. Again, we do recommend staying with Zoll. It's best practice to keep consistency in equipment throughout the fleet for training purposes, speed, and ease of use. And although we are asking you to waive competitive bidding, this item has been bid by npp.gov or NPP.gov, which we are a member of.
I just want to emphasize 2 points. We have extended the hold period of life from 5 years to 7 years now.
Correct.
So we get some savings out of that. And then I know we have stated this many times before, but it's worth reminding everyone to pick up on when you said 5 monitors. We have 2 frontline ambulances and 1 reserve ambulance that is fully equipped and ready to go in the event that one of our frontline ambulances is not available.
Correct.
And each of those is fully equipped with all advanced life-saving equipment, including these monitors. But in addition to that, the frontline piece of fire apparatus at each station is also equipped with this and all the other advanced life support equipment you need.
Yes, sir.
So any of our front responding vehicles, even if it's not an ambulance, can handle an advanced life support case, a heart attack, whatnot.
That is correct.
They just can't transport. So
Yep.
that's pretty impressive, I think, as far as fire departments go. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I was just curious if there's anything, I mean, I know we get into some liability issues, but is there anything we can do with the ones that are at the end of their useful life?
So as part of this proposal, there is a small trade-in value. I believe it's $2,500. But yeah, they've literally reached the end of their useful life here.
Okay, so it's not, we couldn't donate them to anybody, they wouldn't be supported in a way that would be useful?
No.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Tosinga.
Yes.
Trustee Nagel.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Jane.
Motion carries. Next item, Resolution R-2299, a resolution approving an easement agreement with Matthew D. Mason of Hilco Real Estate for the relocation of the village's water main on Route 83 at the I-88 on-ramp. May I have a motion for the approval of Resolution R-2299?
So moved.
Second.
Director O'Malley, would you please present this resolution?
Thank you, President Herman. In conjunction with the approved encroachment agreement with Nicor Gas to replace the water main within this property, an easement agreement with the property owner Adventus US Realty of 1420 Kensington Road is also required. There's no cost to the village for this agreement. The project engineer, Public Works admin staff, and village attorney have worked diligently with the property owner and their legal counsel over the past few months to draft this agreement. The agreement will allow the water main installation project to continue as planned for the improvement in quality and availability of water for the residents and commercial usage.
Questions, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Tosinga.
Yes.
Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Nagel.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Jane.
Carries. Next item, ordinance S-1727, an ordinance granting a variation from section 13-6B-3.H.3 of the Title 13, our zoning regulations of the Village Code of the Village of Oak Brook relative to the rear yard setback for the property located at 3702 Frederick Drive in the Village of Oak Brook. May I have a motion for the approval of ordinance S-1727?
Second?
Director Von Drassik, would you please present this item?
Yes, so in this particular case, the property owner is in the process of renovating the entire home and determined that there was a desire to have an additional enclosed porch. The porch, though, coming out of the house would go onto the existing deck. The deck is within the rear yard, and the request was to put that enclosed room with enclosed porch onto the existing deck. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the case and unanimously supported approval of this request.
Thank you. So just to clarify and emphasize, the proposed screen porch will not extend any further than the existing deck?
Correct. The deck itself is being upgraded, I should say. That said, it is not changing a footprint to the existing deck from the existing home. The property owner purchased the property and is renovating the house rather than tearing down and replacing.
Do I recall correctly that maybe a year or two ago, we approved something similar in Brook Forest?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Exactly the case file that they were given as an example.
Okay. Questions, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Nagel.
Yes.
Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Tosinga.
Yes.
Trustee Jane.
Okay, motion carries. That concludes the active business. I'm going to invite our board members now to individually address the public. You'll each have 2 minutes. Trustee Jane, do you want to start? Right there, okay. Trustee Nagel? Trustee Reddy?
Thank you, President Herman, and hope you all had good Easter and Passover. And today's World Earth Day. Please plant trees and preserve greenery. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Martin?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. A few updates to remind everyone. The Community Engagement Committee is hosting a pancake breakfast at the fire station Sunday, May 4th at 10 a.m. So I encourage everyone to come out and meet some of your fellow residents in the community. Everyone is welcome to that. Sports Court, the memberships for the Bath and Tennis are currently available. If you're interested, please come get them. They're selling very, very quickly. We are about double the memberships at this time last year, and that doubling in memberships includes a doubling in resident memberships, which I'm incredibly excited about. So we have many more residents joining the Bath and Tennis this year. So that's fantastic news for everyone. So please come out and join that. You actually don't have to come anywhere. You can do that online at the Oak Brook Bath and Tennis website. And then Saturday, June 7th, will be the summer reading kickoff at the library, and we're hopefully going to do something that integrates a little bit of the sports core and the library together for this summer reading kickoff. So hopefully you guys can come out and enjoy that as well on June 7th. And I just wanted to say, again, I think it's really cool, the designation that we've gotten as Tree City USA. And on Earth Day, I'm super grateful to be living in a community that really works hard to preserve 1/3 of its green space. And so I hope we continue to do that as we move forward. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Trustee Manzo?
Just 2 items. Chief, I forgot to mention this to you. 3 weeks ago, we had a Saddlebrook meeting here in this room, and there was a discussion around 38th Street. I think by Florence, 2 of the intersections have stop signs, 2 of them, 2 don't. So what happens many times is they think it's a 4-way stop. So they'll stop and they'll start going, and there's some near misses. I don't know if we could look at that and say, I believe 38th is our road, but if you could take a look at that, that would be great. After our last meeting, I did receive a lot of communication regarding the sports core issue. Obviously, we started talking about, do we keep the facility or do we destroy it? And obviously, that'll be the question at hand for the sports core committee meeting. But what bothered me is I contacted most of the residents back, not all of them, but most of them. And most of the comments were, do what we can to preserve it.
But what bothered me with the comments after I spoke with the people was, well, I don't want to come to a board meeting and I don't want to post anything on Facebook because I don't want to get attacked. I don't want everybody coming after me. I want my neighbors getting mad at me. And it just struck me that, I mean, we're just better than that. You know, you think it happens only during the election, but the election's over and it's still going on. We just have to have more honest and respectful debates. But to sit there and attack neighbors because you guys have a disagreement or a different opinion, we just need to be careful. And I know lately, social media here in Oak Brook has gotten very ugly, and I hope it stops. Let's have honest, open, but most importantly, respectful debates, and I hope to see everybody at the Sports Court Committee meeting coming up.
Trustee Tazinga.
Thank you, President Herman. I'd like to congratulate all the candidates who won in the last election, and I also particularly like to point out that we have with us tonight Tina Chan, who was the winning candidate for the one spot that was open for the Park District. I went to the Park District meeting last night, and it was interesting. The Park District Board did not recognize or congratulate Tina. So I would like to take care of that basic courtesy, and also to let you know how excited we are to work with you, because the Park District and the village, we share the exact same residents. Some park districts go out beyond the boundaries of a village, but ours is pretty much the same as the village. We have some overlap of functions with our Bath and Tennis Club. You know, we each have a pool, we each have tennis courts. We've relied on the Park District for some advice over the years. We have complementary functions. Some years ago when McDonald's left, they decided to maximize or supersize their earnings on the way out of town and try and sell the 20-acre soccer field over there on Jory Boulevard to Pulte developers to put 600 townhomes in and to alter the course of Ginger Creek. And we worked very closely with the Park District and the Park District Foundation and the Conservation Foundation to put a referendum on the ballot to ask our residents, do you want 600 townhomes there to deface your community, or would you like to keep it open space, and should the Park District buy it? And the resounding 2/3 approval was the Park District should buy it. So they did it, they took out a bond issue, they bought it. They were able to move fast, and they were able to keep the use congruent with what McDonald's had done. So there's a very strong complementary relationship. So it's a very important government entity, and we're so pleased, Tina, that you won, and we wish you every success as a Park District Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I would like to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of discussing 1, minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Act, 2, to consider the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the village, and 3, to consider litigation probable or imminent or pending against, affecting, or on behalf of the village pursuant to Sections 2C21, 2C5, and 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act respectively. May I have a motion to adjourn to closed session for those purposes?
So moved.
Clerk Scarpaniti, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Nagel. Yes. Trustee Reddy.
Yes.
Trustee Tazinga.
Yes.
Trustee Manzo.
Yes.
Trustee Jane.
By the way, I got a text from Trustee Jane. He says he can hear everything, but for some reason, his voice is not coming through.
Thank you. Motion carries. There'll be no additional business conducted after the closed meeting, so our regular meeting will be adjourned from the upper level conference room. Thank you, everyone.